Okay, so we'll try to just elaborate on a few instances that can also arise in dealing with a connected person transaction, having fulfilled and satisfied those three requirements so far as value of supply is concerned, and indeed we've also established time of supply. So let's take a scenario where we have two companies. Okay, let's say the scenario reads as follows. Prop ABC Ltd is a 40% shareholder of House DEF Ltd. Prop ABC is a property dealer and develops property and land. Prop ABC sells an estate property for 100 million rands when the market value is 150 million rands to House DEF. Right? Then you get a scenario that says, what will VAT consequences be if House DEF uses the property for commercial accommodation? And we've also written as a note on the side there in saying Prop DEF in this instance deals in commercial accommodation. So if Prop DEF deals in commercial accommodation, which we agree that this is a taxable supply to them as well. It's more like trade in stock because they deal in commercial accommodation. So they would have bought from a vendor who's a connected person to them. However, there is that connected person rule. However, the supply being supplied is actually a taxable supply to also House DEF because they are in the commercial accommodation space. So for them, this is more like trade in stock, which is commercial accommodation to them. So that means to say that the third requirement so far as value of supply would have not been satisfied in terms of the principles and requirements that have to be recognized before we can actually apply the connected person rule in using the actual market value as the value of supply. So in this instance, we have a normal taxable supply. Therefore, value of supply in this instance will be the actual 100 million rands, which is charged by Prop ABC in this instance. So now take the same scenario again and say, in this instance now, House DEF uses the actual property which it bought from Prop ABC as residential residence for university students. It's a res for university students. So in this instance, what is residential accommodation to these guys? They are not in the property dealer market. They're basically not in that market. So in this instance, that means they are transacting in an exempt supply. And since this is an exempt supply, that would mean that that requirement would have been met, you know. Therefore, the value of supply in this instance would be the open market value, which we have recorded as 150 million rands. Then we'll apply the principles that he spoke about in having to recognize output VAT and input VAT, just as we elaborated with our example. So just be very careful about such a scenario arising. If they happen to be in the same industry, for instance, if they were both dealers in the property market, in that instance, there would have not been, situations that arise in terms of them having to use the connected person special rules, because the debt requirement would have not been satisfied, So another situation could be where you have two car dealerships that are also transacting, but you also have to be very careful in terms of what the actual transport would likely also be used for. If you had to deal with maybe a bus, for instance, if they're making buses, two companies that are also connected, and the one sells to another, and maybe the next company that is actually selling will likely be buying that bus to sell to another dealer for a profit. In that situation, there would not be, connected person special rules arising. Whereas if maybe there was a bus scenario and that bus was ultimately going to be used for fare paying passengers, in that instance it was going to be used for an exempt supply. Therefore, that requirement of special rules in terms of value would have been satisfied, and then we'd apply the special rule of having to use market value. In this instance, even though they are not in the same industry, however, the one supplies commercial accommodation, the other one is in the residential space in terms of them being a property dealer. So to both of them, they're both dealing with taxable supplies, so it's almost as if there would not be any VAT consequences arising. In most practice, or most examples that you get in practice, this example will likely be, elaborated with like a connected person relationship of two parties that are transacting with each other and they happen to be in the same industry. Whereas in this instance, they're not quite in the same industry, but however, it's almost similar because the one is in commercial accommodation, which is a taxable supply, whereas the other one is a property dealer, which is basically anything that has to do with property to him. It's basically like trading stock. So it's not really rocket science. It's basically just applying a bit of logic and a bit of like just getting to grips with just asking yourself a few questions that will likely lead you to an understanding in getting through to your final solution. And that's basically where we are, just in closing this part of like connected person, which is quite a favorite topic at an honors level. So just apply the normal principles we spoke about and you likely get closer to a sensible outcome.